this out. BCM Rider here, bringing you another Commander deck tech. Today, we have our first ever partner commander. This is a 4-color worm tribal deck that we're going to utilize sneak attack to put very large creatures on the battlefield very quickly and get all sorts of value from dealing as much damage as possible, gaining life, drawing cards, just overall big damage. So let's get right into it. We're going to use Bruce Tarl, Boorish Herder, to give any creature we control double strike and lifelink, and we're going to use Ikra Shadiqi to gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So our main goal is gain as much life as possible and end the game as quickly as possible. So let's get right into it. First up are all the creatures and our very large worms. So we have Argothian Worm. This has a very unique effect where any player may sacrifice a land to put Argothian Worm back on top of our library. So in retrospect, your opponents are going to have to deal with a 6/6 or they lose a land. Next, we have Bellowing Tangleworm. This has Intimidate itself, but he's going to give all our other green creatures Intimidate as well. Luckily, 90% of all the creatures we're running are green, so it's going to make it very difficult for our opponents to block our creatures. Now we have the Phallic Armada Worm. When this enters the battlefield, we get a 5/5 green worm token. Next, we have Enlisted Worm. When we cast this, it's going to have Cascade, so we can cast anything from the top of our library that's mana cost 5 or less. Now we have Quilled Great Worm. Whenever Quilled Great Worm deals combat damage to our opponents, we get to put that many counters on it, and we can cast Quilled Great Worm from our graveyard just by removing 6 counters from any creature. And to deal with all our opponents' little creatures, that way they take even more damage, we have Massacre Worm. So if our opponents are on a very go-wide token strategy, Massacre Worm will enter and give all those creatures -2/-2. And then whenever any creature a opponent controls is put into a graveyard, they lose 2 life. Next, we have my personal favorite with Wurmcoil Engine. This is a 6/6 with Death Touch and Lifelink, and when Wurmcoil is put into a graveyard, we get 2 tokens. One will have Death Touch, one will have Lifelink. Now we have Engulfing Slagworm. Whenever Engulfing Slagworm blocks or becomes blocked, we get to destroy the creature that blocked it. Then we gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Now we have a very unique one. We have Pan-Glacial Worm. Besides being a 9/5 with Trample, if we're searching our library, we can cast Pan-Glacial Worm from our library. Luckily, we're playing a decent amount of fetch lands, but I'll get to that in just a moment. Next, we have Penumbra Worm. We have a couple worms that when they are put into a graveyard, we get even more worms. In this case, we get a 6/6 worm. Now we have Symbiotic Worm. When this is put into a graveyard, we get 7/1/1 green insects. But insects are not worms. No, they're not. But we can use all these little tokens for creatures that have Convoke, such as Impervious Great Worm. It's a 16/16 and is indestructible. This thing is gonna probably deal the most amount of damage out of all these worm creatures that we have. Luckily, apart from being a sneak attack deck, we're gonna focus on doubling our creature's power. That way we can utilize the trample. That way our opponents will take as much damage as possible. And of course, A worm deck would not be complete without World Spine Wurm. This thing is ridiculous. It's a 15/15 with trample, and if it's put into a graveyard, we get 3 5/5 worm tokens. And if World Spine Wurm would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, it shuffles itself back in. Okay, now we have some creatures that are going to synergize with everything we're doing, whether it be dealing even more damage when these creatures enter the battlefield, or some kind of lord effect, or give us the ability to recast them from our graveyard in case they happen to go there. So, with that, we have Feldman of the Third Path. He's going to allow us to make a token copy of a creature that's in our graveyard. It will be an artifact in addition to its other types, but it's the simple fact of we can continually make token copies of these very large creatures every single turn. Now we have Naeth of the Dire Hunt. This one is going to synergize really well whenever any of our creatures either fight or become blocked. We get to draw a card, and we can activate Naeth. If we do, we get to double target creature's power, and that creature must be blocked. So we're doubling the power, and we get to draw cards. Now we have Xenagos, God of Revels. This one is absolutely insane. Every single combat, we get to choose a creature that we control, and it'll pull its power and gain haste. And because we're a worm tribal deck, we have Roaming Throne. This card is silly. When Roaming Throne enters the battlefield, we get to choose a creature type. Obviously, it's going to be worm, but if a triggered ability of another creature of the chosen type triggers, it will trigger an additional time. This also has Ward 2, because why not? Now we have Ronus the Indomitable. Yes, I know this one is in Russian, but it's a 5/5 Death Touch Indestructible God. But Ronus can't attack or block unless we control a creature with power 4 or greater. That's not going to be hard to do. We're only really after Ronus's activated ability, where we can pay 2 colorless and a green, and then another target creature will get +2/+0 and trample until the end of turn. Now we have Goreclaw, Terror of Kalsisma. This one's going to benefit very well by reducing the cost of the more expensive worm spells, if it happened to be power 4 or greater, which most of our creatures are. But every single combat, when we attack with Terror of Kalsisma, we get to choose another target creature with power 4 or greater, and it'll get +1 and trample. Now we have God Eternal Ronus. This is a 5/5 with Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield, every single creature will double its power and gain vigilance. And if our opponent deals with God Eternal Ronus by putting it into a graveyard or exile, we get to put it third from the top. Now we have good old Mr. Orfeo, the Boulder. Whenever we attack, we get to double the power of any target creature we want. And to stay on the sneak attack theme, we have Ilharg the Razeboar. Similar to God Eternal Ronus, if our opponents deal with Ilharg, it will shuffle back in third from the top. More importantly, whenever we attack with Ilharg the Razeboar, we can put any creature from our hand tapped and attacking, and we get to return that creature back to our hand. And just to capitalize on every single creature entering the battlefield, we have Terror of the Peaks. Because whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, Terror of the Peaks will deal damage to any target equal to that creature's power. Also, if our opponents want to target Terror of the Peaks, they're going to have to pay 3 life to do so. And we have our Worm Lord with Baru Worm Speaker. Our worms are going to get +2/+2 and trample. We're going to use Baru for his activated ability, of creating even more 4/4 worms, and this ability will be reduced by the greatest power among worms we control. We are running a single planeswalker, and it's the best one I can think of to throw around as much damage as possible, with Minx and Boo Timeless Heroes. This one's fun. Every single upkeep, or when Minx and Boo enters the battlefield, we get Boo, the 1/1 Angry Hamster. This is a 1/1 with Trample and Haste, but when we +1 Minx and Boo, we get to put 3 counters on target creature. It'll gain Trample and Haste. Or if we really need to draw cards, we can -2 Minx and Boo, and we can sacrifice a creature to deal damage to any target, where X is that creature's power. But if the creature happened to be a hamster, then we draw cards. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. Like I said, we are a prominent sneak attack deck, so here's sneak attack. You pay 1 red, you can put any creature from your hand on the battlefield, it'll gain haste, and then you sacrifice it. And just to ensure every single creature has haste, we have Fervor. Now, to deal as much damage as possible whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we have Warstorm Surge. And just to spice things up a little bit, we have Pandemonium. Whenever any creature comes into play, that creature's controller can deal damage to any target equal to that creature's power. This one gets out of hand pretty fast. And just to ensure our creatures have haste as well, we have Rhythm of the Wild. Also, this makes all our creature spells uncounterable, but we're going to have the choice of giving the creature haste or making it bigger by putting a +1/+1 counter on it. And in case we need to draw even more cards, we have Greater Good. We can sacrifice a creature and then we draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. So we're going to be drawing a lot of cards with Greater Good. And of course, we have Sandworm Convergence. We kind of have a hard time dealing with flyers, so why not make all the flyers not be able to attack you or planeswalkers? And every single end step, we get to create a 5/5 worm token, and that's fun. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. I'm only running 3 artifacts. So we have Soul Ring, Chromatic Lantern, that way we can get the color we really need. And because we're playing very large creatures, we have the Great Henge. The Great Henge is so powerful. You get to add 2 green mana, and we gain 2 life. And then whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, we get to put a +1 counter on that creature and draw a card. Okay, let's get into the instants. We have a couple tutors. We have Worldly Tutor, so we can go get whatever creature we want, and it gets put on top of the library. Now, to make sure we go get Sneak Attack, we have Enlightened Tutor. Or if you really need the Great Henge, you can get that too. Now we have some protection spells from our opponents. So we have Heroic Intervention. And of course, we have Teferi's Protection. Now we have a couple removal spells, if we really need them. So we have Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, and Chaos Warp. I kind of like Chaos Warp as a defensive card, because when your opponent goes to exile your creature, you can just Chaos Warp it, and you might hit something a little bit better. It's kind of like an instant speed gamble. If there's a bunch of artifacts or enchantments, might as well just blow them up with Heliod's Intervention, because we're kind of a ramp deck as well, so we're going to have a lot of mana that we can dump into Heliod's Intervention. Also, if we just need to gain a lot of life, you can do that too. And if we want to make our creatures even bigger, or draw lots of cards, we have Return of the Wild Speaker. We can draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-humans we control, or we can give them +3/+3. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. We have a whole bunch of ramp spells. So we have Farseek. We have Sylvan Scrying. This will go get any land we want. We have 3 visits. This will go get whatever forest card we want. Most of our land base are forests, so that's going to work out very well for us. We only have a couple basics, but we can get them out with Cultivate or Kadama's Reach. Or if we need to put even more forests on the battlefield, we have Skyshroud Claim. This card is very powerful. Okay, now we got some tutors. So we have Demonic Tutor. Because most of our creatures are green, we have Green Sun Zenith. And if we want to end the game very quickly, we can just go get a very large worm with Finale of Devastation. If X was 10 or more, our creatures are going to get +X/+X and haste. Let's say our opponents blew up the entire board, or we blew up the entire board. We can get them all back with Patriarch's Bidding. Each player is going to choose a creature type and then return all creatures from their graveyard back to the battlefield. Now, to draw even more cards, we have Rishkar's Expertise. This one's a little bit better because we get to draw a lot of cards equal to the greatest power among creatures we control, but also we can cast any spell from our hand that's mana cost 5 or less. Now we have a whole bunch of mass removal, because we're not going to care too much if our creatures die. We're just going to get them back. So we have Toxic Deluge, one of my all-time favorite mass removal spells. Damnation. Blasphemous Act. This will cost less the more creatures there are on the battlefield. We also have Blasphemous Edict. This will get around Indestructible because it'll force them to sacrifice rather than destroy. Now we have some options with Austere Command. We can either destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, or if our opponents have a whole bunch of little creatures, we can destroy all creatures with mana cost 3 or less. Or if we just want to blow up everything, we can destroy all creatures with mana cost 4 or greater as well. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very streamlined mana base that I designed specifically for this build. I know land bases can be very expensive, but I'm just showcasing the most optimal land base. So we have our command tower, our mana confluence. That way we can add whatever color we need. We have 6 fetch lands. So we have Marsh Flats, Wooded Foothills, Verdant Catacombs, Windswept Heath, Bloodstained Mire, and Arid Mesa. Every land is going to be fetchable. So here's all the lands we can go get with these fetch lands. So we have the Triomes. So we have Zeator's Proving Ground, Jetmir's Garden, Savai Triome, and Indatha Triome. Now we have our shock lands. So we have Stomping Ground, Overgrown Tomb, Temple Garden, Godless Shrine, Sacred Foundry, and Blood Crypt. Now we have my personal favorite lands. We have the Surveil lands. So we have Elegant Parlor, Commercial District, Lush Portico, and Rausch's Theater. Now we have our Battle Bond lands. So we have Spire Garden, Spectator Seating, Bountiful Promenade, Undergrowth Stadium, Luxury Suite, and Vault of Champions. Now we have some utility lands that are really going to help us out. So we have Arena of Glory. We can exert this and add 2 red mana, and if we use that mana on a creature spell, that creature will gain haste. Haste is very important for what we're trying to do in this. Now we have Rogue's Passage. In case we have a very large creature that we need to kill our opponents very, very quickly and they have a lot of blockers, just make the creature unblockable. Or if the creature has some kind of ability where it has to deal combat damage, you want Rogue's Passage. Now, to gain even more life, we have Vault of the Archangel. This will give all our creatures lifelink and death touch. And if we have a big enough board, we have Westvale Abbey. That way we can make an even bigger creature just by sacrificing 5 creatures, or we can continually make 1/1 cleric tokens to block our opponent's creatures. But if we sacrifice 5 creatures, we get to transform it. And it'll transform into Ormondal Profane Prince. This is a 9/7 legendary demon with flying, lifelink, indestructible, and haste, which is kind of everything we want to be doing. We're not running very many basics. We have 2 forests, 2 mountains, 1 plains, and 1 swamp. And that was the Commander deck for Bruce Tarl and Ikra Shadiqi. I really hope you guys enjoyed this sneak attack worm tribal deck. I've always liked this kind of strategy, so let me know in the comments below if you guys have any suggestions. I'll leave the link to the deck list in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.